What is up, everybody, from inside Highmark Stadium after the Buffalo Bills just got out to a 1-0 start in the regular season, not without some drama. Ryan Talbot. I'm Matt Parrino. This is Shout, a Buffalo Bills football podcast brought to you by Tops Friendly Markets, who's back in the game, back in the Shout game. And right now, it is the rush to the Tops Red Zone. Get game day ready with Tops. Score big savings, winning recipes, and everything you need for the ultimate game day experience. Head to the Tops Red Zone in-store for all your game day essentials and more. Then there's the Tops Quarterback Blitz. Watch your quarters pile up. Shop over 25 of your favorite brands with your bonus plus and earn a quarterback for each participating product that you purchase. Brands like Bargs, Coca-Cola, Tim Hortons, Tostitos, DiGiorno, Kraft, Mountain Dew, Bounty, and so much more. Head over to Tops Friendly Markets right now and get in the game, Ryan Talbot. We watched a heck of a game today. How are you?
Yeah, I am doing great. I think the Bills Mafia out there, you're probably still catching your breath after that one. A very slow start for the Bills, but as we know, it's not necessarily how you start, it's how you finish in this league. And Buffalo made some great second half adjustments to come back and move to 1-0 on the year.
Yeah, we have so much to get to on both sides of the ball. And of course, there can't be a Buffalo Bills game without some special teams drama. Big returned touchdown for the Cardinals today. Thank you so much for watching. If you're on YouTube, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel as well. We really appreciate it. We'll try to get some of our YouTube specific subscribers into the show as well. I'm a little bit far away from the keyboard, but I think I can manage both things here. But I want to start with Josh Allen because he comes out in this game, and what we spent our offseason talking about is this new look offense. And, you know, because of the uncertainty of the playmakers around him, or maybe the level at which they are at, it's almost like if you're a Bills fan, it's about limiting mistakes. And he comes out on the first drive, 4 plays into the game, and has an absolute horrible mistake. You know, putting the ball on the turf, doesn't read the backside pressure, waits too long in the pocket, gets out, ball comes out after the hit. The Cardinals go down and score a touchdown. And that, to me, is going to be a big storyline to watch. There's a lot of good to talk about from Josh Allen today, and we'll get into that. But as they go through this early gauntlet of the schedule, Ryan, those little mistakes, and there was a couple other plays over the course of the game that maybe didn't end up happening, but you know, he's out on the run a lot, he's hurdling guys. I mean, there's a lot of fun stuff to talk about. But in a game against like the Miami Dolphins, who played tough against the Jacksonville Jaguars today, even the Patriots, who come out 1-0 to start, there's going to be some really tough games on the schedule. And Josh Allen, I think, has to be really cognizant of those kind of mistakes and how they could potentially change the course of the game. Like the way the defense was playing early, 17-3 to lead, and they scored one of those touchdowns off a turnover, you're putting the team in a bad spot.
Putting the team in a really bad spot, Matt. And that, you know, first fumble was inexcusable. That's 100% on Josh Allen holding the ball too long. I understand that a lot of the times he can create and make good things happen, but he did not know that there was someone coming behind him. They stripped him of the ball. And that was a major early shift in the game, Matt, because the Bills are trailing at that point. After going down 7-0, Brandon Cotterington comes in, gets the first kickoff of the game, and takes it for a great return. Sets up the Bills with tremendous field position that the Bills squander. Now, as we know, there's a lot of good that we're going to talk about with Josh Allen and how he bounced back from that. But, you know, in a game that went down to the wire, those points that were left on the field could have been costly.
So let's get to the good stuff with Josh Allen, because there was so much good stuff to get into today. And I got to bring up the screen here, bring up the stats. Josh Allen finishes this day 18 of 23, 78% completion percentage, 232 yards in the air, 39 on the ground, 137.7 quarterback rating, 4 total touchdowns, 2 passing, 2 rushing. It was just a full Josh Allen experience. I mean, you take the turnover early, puts that aside, and proves to the entire football world, oh, you think I'm overrated? Let me show you this. I mean, if the Bills don't have Josh Allen today, they don't win this game. And we're on a day where, if you look across the league, some really just subpar quarterback performances. I mean, you see Deshaun Watson struggling right now with Cleveland. You saw Kirk Cousins in his debut absolutely stink. Trevor Lawrence, after a hot start, really cool off in the second half. Josh Allen as he tends to do, puts the team on his back, makes a ton of huge plays in the run game and the passing game. And there's a lot of performances to talk about, amongst his weapons. But I thought Josh Allen really leaned into the Joe Brady motto, which is everybody eats, right? And they truly did that. I mean, the distribution across this offense was off the charts. I think it was, let me see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different targeted players caught a pass today.
Unbelievable use of spreading the ball around. They were a very balanced team. I think there were some times in the first half where we were looking at each other in the press box, wondering what this team was doing as they were still sticking with the run game, down 17-3. And lo and behold, it worked out nicely. The Bills put together a touchdown drive right before half. They double dip in the second half to really, make this game a level playing field as well. So it was the balance overall, but it was also Josh Allen using all of his weapons. At the end of the day, would you like to see guys like Dalton Kincaid more involved? Absolutely. It felt like he did not have his number called nearly enough, but he was hitting his guys. He had Mac Hollins early in the game for a touchdown. You saw Khalil Shakir once again prove how he can keep his balance and bounce off of would-be tacklers to make big plays. Keon Coleman makes a huge catch late in this game, and the list went on and on. So Josh Allen wasn't zeroed in on one target. He was looking to move the ball in any means necessary, and he did a great job of that, both with his arm and his legs.
I mentioned in the headline here about Josh Allen hurdling the Bills to a touchdown because it was the hurdle touchdown that ended up being the game winner. But not without potential devastation. I mean, we got to wait and see here, right? I'm not trying to scare anybody or, the unknown generally puts a lot of trepidation in fans as a big time player gets hurt. But he got his left hand wrapped during the game, his non-throwing hand. After the game, he was specifically asked about it. And you kind of mentioned it was kind of like an ominous kind of response to the question where he said, listen, I'm not a doctor, got it wrapped up. We're going to go check it out. And then obviously Sean McDermott said that he didn't have a definitive update on it and he was going to get more information. So it'll be tomorrow where we get the full update because the Bills practice tomorrow. It's a short week. We're not going to have to wait very long. But I think the fact that he returned to the game, played in the game is a really good sign. And it's his non-throwing hand. So if it ends up being like even like a broken bone or something like that, if they can like wrap it in some different way, he could probably play through it. It's Josh Allen. The dude is just a gladiator. And I say that because he's in the Pepsi commercial, and I guess that's fitting. But he really is. The way that his attitude, I never thought for a second he wasn't going to be out there on that next drive.
No, I agree with you there. But there's the whole adrenaline aspect of it where, you don't necessarily feel it. If it swells up tomorrow, if there's a bigger issue, then there could be a problem. It is not his throwing hand, as you also noted. But he's going to have to take snaps potentially under center. He's going to have to catch the ball if he's in the shotgun. And if it's wrapped, if there's something wrong with his hand, that could lead to some turnovers, some fumbles, some problems. You'd like to think that Josh Allen can go, but usually in these situations, he is, I'll be all right, I'll be fine. And this time it was, I'm not a doctor. We kind of have to wait and see. So there should be some level of concern because of the fact that this game is on Thursday night in week 2 against the Miami Dolphins. There's not that full week for him to get better there. So it's definitely something to monitor. And like you said, when we talk to Sean McDermott tomorrow, we should have a better idea of the injury itself and how that'll affect Allen going forward.
We're going to get into Dalton Kincaid. We're going to get into Khalil Shakir. We're going to talk about the usage a little bit in this game, which I thought was really interesting. I asked Sean McDermott specifically about that end of the first half situation because in the press box, both you and I were looking at each other like, what are they doing? Like, why are they wasting so much time? It ended up working out. They ended up scoring. I felt like that was the kind of turning point. And then just looking at a comment. Gotta love Facebook.
Yeah.
You gotta love Facebook. We're gonna get to all that in a few minutes. But if you're watching on YouTube, thank you so much. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel as well. We need our new producer, Evan. I'm gonna train him up on this week, and we can put some people in timeout, which I think will be. Sometimes you gotta put people in timeout. I see you, Patrick, talking with the swear words, big tough guy over on Facebook. Calm down, buddy. Calm down. All right, it's week 1. We're just getting started here. All right, so let's move on to the defensive side of the ball quickly because. To me, if I'm looking across, what's up, Johnny, one of our YouTube subscribers, we appreciate you, brother. That to me is where a lot of the concerns were coming into the season because you still have Josh Allen. And I think for the most part, the offense felt like even if things didn't go well at times, it was you were going to find a way to get things going. The defense, however, they struggled against stopping the run. They struggled with generating a pass rush for good chunks of this game. Now, the pass rush ended up taking over, and we're going to get to Greg Rousseau in a minute, but this is a really poor pass blocking unit for the Arizona Cardinals. It's going to get harder over the next couple of weeks, weaken incrementally. Miami's not great, but it's an upgrade over Arizona. Then you have Jacksonville. Then you have Baltimore. It's going to get tougher and tougher and tougher. Houston, who has a really good offensive line. Then it's the New York Jets. If they're healthy, that's a pretty solid line too. So from a pass protection point of view, I don't think the Bills were necessarily great today. They had spurts of really good, and just so happens that Mr. Greg Rousseau had a superstar-like performance.
Yeah, superstar-like performance from Rousseau, which we'll get into here in 1 minute. But you're right. In the first half, the Bills' defensive line were playing on their heels. They were struggling to stop James Conner in this run game. Every third down conversion for the Cardinals team seemed far too easy, whether it was Kyler Murray finding wide open players, using his legs to keep plays alive a little bit before throwing downfield, or just simply running. The Bills defense had no answers for it. It was 191 net yards of offense for the Cardinals in their first 3 drives, which is just inexcusable. Yes, Kyler Murray is dynamic. He can hurt you with his arms and his legs. Not every quarterback is that type of threat. There's the Murrays, the Lamar Jacksons, obviously the Josh Allens of the world. And the Bills won't necessarily see that with Tua next week, with some of these other quarterbacks that they play this season. But it was still concerning to see. And, in the second half, though, whatever adjustments were made at halftime, you saw a much different performance from this defensive line and this defense in general, Matt. The Bills had 1 sack in the first half, which you and I have talked. This might get changed. Greg Rousseau runs Kyler Murray out of bounds. No gain on the play, so they credit him with the sack. But in the second half, he was a force, and probably helps the Cardinals lost Jonah Williams at one point in this game. They were down one of their starting offensive linemen, and at that point on, Greg Rousseau makes 2 more sacks, finishes the day with 3, has the forced fumble on the day. Von Miller gets a sack along the way. Defensive tackle, though, that was a bit concerning for me. I felt like they were not an active unit for the most part on Sunday. I feel like it was a very underwhelming performance from Ed Oliver after a monster season last year. So the whole line as a whole, there's definitely a lot of work to be done.
Couple of points there that I want to dive into. Number one, check out this stat, Ryan. The Bills surrendered 190 yards to the Arizona Cardinals in the first half. And we were talking about it, man, they're racking up the yards. They're moving down the field. And obviously they had the 2 touchdowns, stopping them for the field goal. Maybe they don't score that first touchdown if that Jamarcus Ingram penalty, which was very borderline, doesn't get called, but whatever. They end up scoring the touchdown. 190 yards in the first half. In the second half, 80 yards of total offense for the Arizona Cardinals. And if you look at their playmakers, I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr., 3 targets, ends up with 1 catch for 4 yards, had the drop. We did see the play where he was apparently wide open on one play, and maybe Kyler didn't see it. But Kyler runs 5 for 57, but generally none that really changed the course of the game. Only 162 yards and the 1 touchdown passing. So I feel like from an overall defensive perspective, the Bills did a great job. The other thing about Greg Rousseau that's important to notice, to mention, those 2 sacks, they weren't just like your average sack variety. They were drive-stopping sacks on third down. The first one forced a punt. The second one was a strip sack, ended up getting the Bills to turn the ball over, which was one of my keys of the game. Those changed the complete court, like the momentum of the game, because to that point, it didn't feel like the Bills could really contain the Cardinals. And from that moment on, everything switched. We got to get into it in a little while. We will. Cam Lewis, Jamarcus Ingram coming in after Taron Johnson left the game. I saw Pops Mafia asked about that. Like, were the Bills able to adjust after Taron Johnson? And I feel like they really did.
Yeah. Cam Lewis was flying around the field. There's a lot of Bills fans, and not necessarily our shout insiders or shout listeners, that still can't let the one play from Cam Lewis go from a few seasons ago against Minnesota. But this is a solid player that has the versatility to play cornerback and safety. And when needed today in this matchup, he came in and his nose was around the ball at all times. He made play after play after play. Great in run defense in this matchup. The game could have had a completely different outcome had he not played the way that he did. So kudos to him being that next man up. There were certainly some concerns about the defensive back room going into this game. The way that they limited Marvin Harrison Jr., though, and the weapons in this passing offense. Trey McBride made some plays as well, but this is another guy that looks like he was in line to have this monster type season in Arizona, and the Bills kept him in check. So, kudos to both of those guys, both former UB players, in the way that they stepped up when the Bills needed them.
I thought Cam Lewis was the role he was going into play. I don't think you can overstate how important that is to the Bills defense, because Taron Johnson is a guy that they rely upon to be physical. And actually, it was interesting that Cam Lewis revealed that he spent all week practicing as the dime safety, which was going to be, the iteration of their defense that they leaned into last year with Taylor Rapp in that third safety role. Well, Rapp's now a starter. So the idea was to have Lewis play in the dime spot. When he had to move into slot corner, that meant Jamarcus Ingram got a big opportunity. And it was also interesting to hear Sean McDermott that it was even a borderline decision on Friday with the whole DeJuan Smoot situation if Ingram was even going to be active, which if Ingram's not active, like what's the math there? Because I don't know if Smoot not playing it would be the guy that I would then just think that they wouldn't have brought up Cameron Klein.
You would think so it was a little baffling that he made that comment. Maybe he can get further into it. I don't know if he'll ever circle back to that. Yeah, the math doesn't add up there. Ingram has proven this summer that he can be a valuable contributor to this team the way that he's played. So I'm not sure where that the numbers game would have fallen on that. But there were some questionable inactives today, which we're not going to spend too much time because there's too much with this game to discuss. Ryan Vandemark, in my opinion, is the top swing tackle on this team. Probably better at left tackle than right tackle, but it was a little bit of a surprise to see him inactive, and the rookie Tylen Grable on this roster, and a few other moves as well. They did go light at linebacker, nothing that ended up hurting them in this matchup, but these are some of the decisions that the Bills are going to have to make on a weekly basis, especially as, unfortunately, the game goes, a lot of these guys get banged up.
Yeah, I thought that the play of Von Miller was something encouraging. I thought it wasn't just that one play where he got the quote unquote sack where he just touched him when he was down. It was a good pass rush, but he was in the backfield today. He looked like this was a continuation of what we saw in Kansas City last year. I thought that one of the first really good pressures of the day was on a play where Kyler Murray just ended up running up the middle and getting a big game, but he was pushed out of the pocket by Miller, who won his one-on-one pass rush. I think when we look at the Pro Football Focus report, and again, we got to watch the game back. I'm just, taking a couple of, I would not be surprised if Von Miller graded out pretty well as a pass rusher in this game. The problem on that specific play was he has a good rush. He delivers the pressure, and then there's nobody at the second level to pick up Kyler Murray and make the play. And, it kind of brings me to Dorian Williams in that spot. Like, I don't know about you. I wasn't overly impressed with his first game. I felt like this was a tough matchup, a lot going on. It's going to be different next week because Kyler Murray is this dual threat, having to worry about him in the run game. Next week, you're going to go up against Tua, who it's going to be about being on schedule and dealing with their speed and
taking away those initial reads.
Yes, and being really effective in coverage. So it's almost like different ends of the pool for Dorian Williams in the first game. I don't know. I came away just like so on him.
And that's a perfect assessment for his game on Sunday. He did have the fumble recovery on Rousseau's sack, and the Bills ended up scoring and taking the lead in that point of the game. So a nice play there to be in the right spot at the time. But overall, there was a lot of ups and downs. There's some missed tackles there. Were some issues in terms of containing Kyler Murray. So definitely an uneven first performance. But like you said, this upcoming game against Miami, I don't want to use the word easier, but definitely a lot different in terms of what the Bills are going to expect him to do, what he needs to be able to do in terms of clogging up those passing lanes, because Tua is someone that's very on schedule. The offensive line might not be great, but he doesn't take a ton of sacks because usually it's just within a few seconds he has that ball out. So if he can do a good job, that being Dorian Williams, of taking away some of those initial reads, if they're passes over the middle, for instance, that can help him bounce back in a big-time way.
So I want to read a quote from Sean McDermott here. He was asked in the post-game press conference by me, what went into the decision to not go for it on fourth down. So 2 minutes to go. Arizona still has 3 timeouts left. The Bills kick the field goal. Tyler Bass makes the field goal. So one piece of that is Tyler Bass having the confidence to send him out there to make that field goal, because if he misses it, then you're still only up by 3. They have the 3 timeouts, and a field goal sends it to overtime.
Right.
So here's his full quote on it. I will read it to you if I can find it. Here we go. What are the analytics people saying out there? He joked to start off with. That's a tough one. That's a loaded situation. We'd love to put the game away, but going for it, if we got it, wouldn't necessarily put the game away as they held 3 timeouts. 4th and 2 is going to be, we're going for it. 4th and 3, and it's a longer 3. So I debated over going for it or not, but I felt like I wanted to give our defense a chance to defend a touchdown here. Which, by the way, I'll say the narrative of this game and the way that they flipped the script in the second half, I think that there was a little bit of, you can have some understanding about why he would have some faith in his defense in that spot. Now, if that's a touchdown at the end there, and then they have to turn around, that's going to be really tough, but he gets to that in a second. As it turned out, it worked. If you look at it where the last line of scrimmage was for them, it was at the 25-yard line, and they were probably kicking a field goal, and we're going to overtime more than likely. Or we're trying to save those timeouts, their own timeouts, to have a counterattack. So there's a lot that goes on that goes into that one. Glad it worked out, and I thought hard about it. So if you go for it there and you don't get it, you have your own timeouts. You have to defend against the touchdown both ways. But either way, you're keeping your own timeouts with the idea that you're going to counter with whatever time's left to try to get a field goal to win it.
Right. So the decision that Sean McDermott had to make today, I think at the end of the day was the right one. And, 4th and a long 3, you usually feel good about Josh Allen in that situation, but people need to remember that on that 3rd and 3 play, that was probably Josh Allen's worst pass of the game to Ty Johnson down at his ankles. He had him open. He probably could have moved the chains, and the game could have ended on that at that point, or they could have drawn a lot of time off the clock. So by kicking the field goal there, going up 6, you're at least forcing them to go the length of the field to score a touchdown. Did it help that Tyler Bass kicks the kickoff out of bounds and they start at their own 40? Absolutely not. That wasn't part of the game plan. You wanted to start them buried deep, or at least a little bit deeper than the 40. But at the end of the day, it worked out for Buffalo. They were going to force them to have to move the length of the entire field. Buffalo's defense held up. There were definitely some physical plays on that drive where I think a lot of people were waiting to see if a flag was going to get thrown, and it didn't. So McDermott can feel pretty happy about that at the end of the day, and the way that the responded defensively, where he most likely felt the most confident in regards to forcing them to try to go for the touchdown to win.
Let's play a guessing game, Ryan Talbot. Sure. Right now on YouTube, we have, I think, close to 700 or 800 watching live just on YouTube, which is awesome. Thank you so much for watching. We always appreciate it. Of all of those people, how many have liked this video? Go.
41.
41 likes on the live show. Let's see what we got here. Can you hear that in the background? Ooh, we're vibing right now, dude. I like it. We got 75 likes, but as I'm saying that, the likes are shooting up. They're like, wait a second, I didn't hit that like button yet. I got to do it now. Thank you so much. We appreciate you liking the show, subscribing to the channel. Really cool moment for us in the stadium today. Before kickoff, taking a picture together. This is our 7th year covering this team together. And I want to return the favor because a couple of days ago you were on a podcast and you said how great it's been, our friendship, building this over the last couple of years, the coverage, the podcast. And I wanted to shoot it right back at you, man. It's every day. It never feels like work, and it's cool getting a chance to work next to one of your best friends.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you for that. And, it's funny because if we're going through something, we call each other, we text each other, we bounce ideas off of one another, headlines, you name it. And that's such a cool part of this. But just getting to work with you on a daily basis, whether I'm here, whether I'm at home, doesn't really matter. Doesn't feel like a job working with you over these last 7 years.
So one of the things you got to do is supporting the podcast. We appreciate you. If you're in here and you're in the YouTube subscribers, we have subscribers there as well. Thank you so much. But you got to become an insider because we've been active on there all day today. Put out a couple things from the locker room. The insiders always get it first when we go into the locker room. And to become an insider, 716-528-6727. All right, Caitlin. She goes, ugh, are you guys going to tickle pickles or what? Wow.
Inappropriate.
Like we're not. That's inappropriate. Just a little bro love, watching the game after she's about to yell at me for saying that.
Oh, 100%.
But it was kind of funny. So I thought, but we're not. So don't worry about that. Anyway, 716-528-6727. Become a Shout Insider. 2-week free trial, $3.99 a month after that. You can ride with the Shout guys. And anytime that you have a question, you want to talk about something Bills related, you can hit us up on the text line, which is brought to you by Carrie C. Byer, attorney with the law offices of Francis M. Litro. located at 237 Main Street in Buffalo, New York. If you or someone you know is seriously injured, give him a call, 716-852-1234, or check out litrolaw.com. Anyway, where do you want to go next?
Let's go next. I see in the comments here about Tyler Bass, and I know we've touched upon it. I'm going to say a few things about Tyler Bass today. He converted on every field goal attempt. He converted on his extra points as well. I think it's to note, though, that he didn't come out unless it was less than 40 yards, Matt. And he made the kicks that mattered. He helped the Bills win this game. But it's still something where special teams today, including Bass, did not have the finest day. The kick out of bounds, the touchdown return, which that's not just on Bass. Matthew Smiley, I felt coming into the season, was on the hot seat. And I'm not sure, despite a really good return early in the game by Codrington, that unit did anything to make me feel better going into this next week against Miami. And as the season goes on, that's another unit that really needs to step up because, Josh Allen, this offense, put up 34 points today, and that almost was not enough.
I feel like the league is going to have a little bit of a problem on their hands because I think as the weeks go along and more of these returns are huge and some go for touchdowns, you're going to see teams that are just going to say, you know what, to heck with this. We're just going to kick it out of the end zone because you started at the 30-yard line and take your chances. I was talking to Reggie Gilliam after the game today, and I asked him about, all right, what happened on that play? And he said, it's just different. Before, you can kind of come down and diagnose a little bit, see what's going on, and then decide what you're going to do once you shed your block. Now, it's almost like you got to like cloudy everything up at the point of where the run starts, because if you don't, they just need any kind of open grass and it's going to be over. And he said he went to the sideline afterwards and the mantra was, don't sit in your chair, don't wait, get to your gap, fill your gap. And he almost said too, which I thought was interesting, get through your block and get to the other side and then diagnose what you have to do from there. Because if you don't get to that spot, it's going to be quote unquote, see ya.
Yeah. So this is something where this unit has to work diligently going forward, or the Bills just simply have to kick that ball into the end zone and let the defense kind of, step up, do their job, where we saw in the second half, they made the right adjustments. They made the correct moves. And now they're going against a very familiar team in Miami. So the fewer mistakes they can make in the special teams game, the better and the more well this bodes for Buffalo in week 2.
All right, let's get back to the offensive side of the ball. And Dalton Kincaid was surprisingly quiet today. 2 targets in the game, 1 catch for, I think it ended up being for 11 yards. Sean McDermott mentioned that he thought it was a better job of trying to get him involved in the second half. But he also said when teams are going to try to take him away, you got to go and make plays to other people. And that's what the Bills try to do. They try to get the ball around. I thought it was interesting. The thing for me is it's not so much about when Kincaid's out there if he doesn't end up getting the ball, because you're right. If he's bracketed, if teams are trying to take him away, you don't want to force it to any one guy. The problem was like the usage. Like I'm very interested to see what the snap count is going to be, because there was too many times when I looked out there where I was like, why isn't Dalton Kincaid not on the field?
What is this personnel package? Why are these the players that are on the field at the time? Yeah. I've been someone that has said Dalton Kincaid's going to have a monster season in this offense. And the opportunities were limited, and I'm sure there were some times where the defense deserves credit for that in Arizona, but there were far too many times where he just simply wasn't on the field. And this isn't a knock on Dawson Knox, but Knox was out there getting some more opportunities. There were times where they had MVS on the field and the wide receiver, running back, just the overall personnel packages were a little bit baffling at times. You thought, okay, this player should only be limited to X amount of snaps. And instead, they were mixing and matching and almost getting too cute at times. And I say that, and once again, they scored 34 points. They were a turnover, away from at least 37 points because the Bills were already in field goal range at that point too, minimally. So it's hard to criticize the offense too much in that case. But at times, I just feel like you just need to put your best players on the field and say, here's our best guys. You need your best guys to try to stop us. We're just going to go at it and see who ends up being better at the end of the day.
Speaking of best guys, I think it's safe to say that one of the best guys out there today was Khalil Shakir. And it continues to be a story of a guy that just wants to fight for the extra stuff, right? Like bouncing off would-be tacklers, racking up all of this yards after the catch. It's like, that's so important to what they're trying to do. I mean, that touchdown, you think about it last year when some drives stalled in the red zone, right? Like, you never can take your arrival into the red zone for granted. And I feel like that play is a perfect example of Khalil Shakir saying, okay, I could probably go down 2 yards into that route or getting hit for the first time, but I'm going to bounce off that. I'm going to bounce off another one. I'm going to try to like reach my arm out to get the ball into the end zone. That's just huge for what the Bills are trying to accomplish. When you go 5 or 6 straight drives and you score on 5 of them, 4 of them being touchdowns, you can't undersell the importance of a play like that by Shakir. And then the other play where he bounced off 2 or 3 and ended up with a 19-yard gain that should have went for like 3.
Right. So after the game, Josh Allen mentioned that Shakir is really good at like dropping his hip at the right time to avoid going down, to bounce off of these defenders, keep his balance, because his balance is off the charts. And the touchdown play itself was so impressive to me because he bounced off of 1 or 2 defenders on his way. And then when it looked like he was probably going to end just short of the end zone, he contorts his body and kind of flips back and just does enough to get it over the goal line. So he's always thinking about how to carve out a few extra yards. And like you said, the one that should have gone for 3, that went for a lot more. This is starting to become routine for Khalil Shakir. And while no one had gaudy stats today in the receiving room, he made huge plays when called upon, which is what we expected.
It wasn't a banner day necessarily for James Cook, but I do think he had some really important runs throughout this game. He finishes with 70 plus on the ground, 3.7 per carry. And it almost felt like with the approach that Arizona took in this game was like, all right, we're going to make sure that we're, consistent in trying to defend the run, not letting the Bills get out and run. And it felt like in the first half, the Bills wanted to run the ball. So I think it was almost to a degree a little bit easier for them to pre-diagnose things. But Cook ends up having just a solid day. But I thought it was a really nice first day for Ray Davis, who ends up getting, I think it was a 14-yard catch. Then it ended up being a 13-yard run on the next play. Those are 2 straight plays where it's a perfect microcosm of what we said Ray Davis could be for this offense, making an impact in the pass game and in the run game.
Yeah. So first of all, James Cook ended up with over 100 total yards in this game, 32 receiving, in addition to the 70 plus yards that he had rushing. And at one point he was averaging somewhere around 4.8 yards per clip. I feel like late in the game where the Cardinals knew the Bills were trying to run out the clock, it probably helped them kind of pin their ears back on the run plays, stop him for some losses. Overall, though, really nice game for James Cook. We saw him create something out of nothing multiple times in this game, which maybe that'll be our next conversation, the play of the offensive line, which I thought left something to be desired today. Ray Davis came in, made 2 really good plays, one as a receiver, one as a runner, so started to make his impact felt. And, Ty Johnson, not much of an impact, and he did come back to the game, but at one point, he was in the blue medical tent, and it goes back to what you were talking about.
What did I say when he was in the blue medical?
A lot this summer. He's always injured. He's always banged up, and that's a tough part of it. We've talked about the Ty Johnsons, the Bale Inspectors of this team. Not that anything happened to Spector today, but there's just certain guys that struggle to stay healthy. And sure enough, week 1, we already see those little, dings happening to some of these players.
All right. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. We are talking about the Buffalo Bills 34-28 win over the Arizona Cardinals. Over 2,000 watching across all platforms right now. We appreciate it. Hit that like button wherever you are, even if you're on Facebook. Like the tweet, whatever, on X, I guess it's called. And then right here on YouTube. So the offensive line, across the board, probably wasn't great. I thought that the penalties on the offensive line were absolutely killers. And this is the kind of stuff that, like, you put on the head coach. Like, you put on, the getting your team ready to play, being dialed in. I'll tell you right now, the next stretch of 3 games, they're going to be tight games. These kinds of plays, these kinds of penalties where you shoot yourself in the foot time and time again, I don't know what the Bills have to do to rectify that situation, but it feels like this storyline pops up every season. And to have it be so prevalent right off the jump, first of all, you wonder, well, did the starters play enough? And I know that the offensive line actually played more than some of the other starters. I mean, they were in it for a couple of drives against the Steelers and a couple of drives against the Panthers, I believe. Or no, who was the first team? The Colts?
No, they played against, we were here for
the Bears. The Bears.
Thank you. Yes.
So I thought that they actually had a lot of reps, but maybe it's, more emphasis on it in practice because it just was a little bit too much sloppiness.
Yeah, I mean, sloppiness, at least in three positions. Deion Dawkins at this point should not be getting penalized the way that he was in this game. I thought Spencer Brown had at least one penalty as well. The one guy that I had really high expectations for, and I still have high expectations for, is Osiris Torrance. And I will go back and rewatch this game, but watching him that first watch, Matt, I thought that he left a lot to be desired on the field. He had a few costly penalties. I thought he had some misses along the way. So was not the best performance. You saw Josh Allen have to elude a lot of pressure at times, where he was able to make something out of nothing, create those plays. He had that wow play where he threw a pass to James Cook where it looked like he was, dead to rights with the blitzer coming at him at one point, gets around that, runs. He's going toward the sideline and he gets that off for another first down. So, Allen can mask a lot of the issues with his offensive line, but the hope was that this unit was going to take another step forward this year, despite losing Mitch Morse and when they had to cut him, and, help Josh Allen be able to hold the ball a little bit back there without that pressure constantly in his face.
What do you make of the Taron Johnson injury? Because that's one thing that I think if we're going into this week on a short week against that team, knowing the kind of weapons that they have, this is going to be the storyline of the week because, obviously after, the update on Josh Allen, whatever that ends up being, probably takes precedent. But without Taron Johnson, you're looking at another week with, Cam Lewis, who I thought played super well today. And I think getting another opportunity would be interesting to see how he plays in that role. But if Taron Johnson can't go on Thursday night, how big of a deal is that for a Buffalo defense already without Matt Milano? And I feel like missing Matt Milano tonight you felt it. You felt it so much more than you did last year. I feel like they missed Tyrell Dotson tonight. I think part of the reason that he probably wanted to go to Seattle, I think he's on their depth chart as a starting middle linebacker. He wasn't going to have that opportunity here with Terrell Bernard. So maybe even the Bills were interested in maybe giving him similar money to what he got. I think it was around $4.5 million per year in Seattle. He was going to move on. And I'm not closing the door necessarily on Dorian Williams, but it felt like there was a drop off at that spot in this game compared to what they got for the majority of last season.
It was very weird this summer, Matt, too, at training camp. Whenever Dorian Williams was brought up, they said a few nice things, but they never they weren't gushing about the guy. There's still things for him to work on. He's still a young guy. He's still learning, getting better. And there were some issues there today for sure. So, going back to the original question, if Taron Johnson can't go, especially against Miami, that would be a huge loss because this is a passing attack first. I know they have a lot of speed in the backfield too that they can hurt you with. But the way that they can spread the ball around with those weapons in the passing game, you need a guy like Taron Johnson to be back there to kind of settle that defense down at times, make sure they're aligned in the right spots. And also we've seen him make countless plays in his career that if you don't have that on the field, it would really hurt Buffalo's chances on Thursday Night Football.
You have a lot of chances to listen to Shout. Regular season, Buffalo Bills, regular season is underway. Start out 1-0 today, getting a win over the Arizona Cardinals. It's going to be a dogfight in the AFC. Man, Miami Dolphins down today. Looked like they were in big trouble against Jacksonville. They pull one out. New England gets the win. Although I will say it would be kind of funny if we're talking on Tuesday and the Jets are the lone team without a win in week one after all the hype all offseason long. Like we mentioned at the top of the show, Tops is back as the official title sponsor of Shout at Buffalo Bills Football Podcast. And right now with Tops, you can win a trip to see the Bills play in Los Angeles. I can't wait for that trip. Winner and 3 guests will get round trip flights from Buffalo to LA, Buffalo at LA game tickets, 4-night hotel stay in Santa Monica, a party pack with a VIP pregame, and more. See Labatt display in store or enter and learn more over at topsmarkets.com, the home of the best deals in town. All right. Ryan Talbot, final thought.
Bills Mafia insiders, stay with us. This is a short week. There's a practice tomorrow. We'll have a live podcast before that Thursday night game, and then we'll have you covered with tons of coverage on this pivotal week 2 matchup between the Bills and the Dolphins. All right. I'm Matt Parrino. He's Ryan Talbot. We'll see you very soon. Might be back as early as tomorrow. If not, one big show on Tuesday. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Get the new week started off great on Monday. We'll see you soon. Take care, everybody.